The thing with pain is that it can be very subjective. The word I would use instead is that pain can be very personal to you. And what that also means is that you understand your pain the most. As this is the case, knowing what your pain triggers are can help you to manage and hopefully to treat your pain ultimately, especially even chronic pain. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jeff, and I am a licensed occupational therapist practicing in America. A common misconception about occupational therapists is that they help people to find jobs, but instead they help people to do the things that they want to do that are meaningful to them. My goal is to increase awareness about the profession of occupational therapy to help people live healthier and happier lives. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to this channel and joining to be a member. You can also check out the video description for more helpful resources. I'm the OT Dude, and let's get functional. As someone who is currently living with chronic low back pain, I began to think about pain triggers myself. But what is a pain trigger? Put simply, it is something that causes you pain, typically on a more consistent basis, like there is some sort of pattern to it. Yes, it is possible that some people may have more random pain that is like not linked to anything, but this is much rarer and we're just going to keep things more general. A pain trigger can be physical, which is what most people attribute to be their cause of pain to be, such as like lifting too much, sitting for too long, or literally just getting injured, right, physically. For example, with low back pain, a study looked at both what patients and, interestingly, physiotherapists thought were the biggest culprits for pain triggers. They asked almost 1,000 participants, and these are patients, and 100 physiotherapists, what they thought. Both of their views were actually quite similar, and they said that the number one pain trigger for low back pain was lifting, such as like lifting a heavy object, like furniture or something. In fact, it was this activity of lifting that caused my low back injury in the first place. And the other two in the study that were mentioned were attributed to bending, like bending too much, and prolonged sitting. So one of the motivation for me for making this video was that I was doing some gardening the other day, and I tried to pull out a bush, well, two actually, and to replant it with more drought-friendly alternative. And afterwards, when I was taking a rest, I really noticed I was in a lot of pain in my low back that didn't go away. I had a pain flare-up, and that something was probably triggered it. And so it made me think, like, did I overdo it? Or what happened here? Was something a trigger? And thinking back on this, I actually did a lot of potential physical triggers like that were mentioned in this study. I lifted a lot of tools. I bent down a lot to get down at the base. I also sat down on concrete to get really close on like, hard surface. So this example should be no surprise. I had 3 of the most common triggers of low back pain. It's no wonder that my back hurt, right? And for physical triggers of pain, just pain in general, it can also include other things too, like what you eat and drink. So your diet. This may also include medications, alcohol, smoking. And we all know most of these things aren't good, right? Like alcohol and smoking. And exercise, or your lack of exercise, or your lack of activity. And it's not just your own body, but physical can also be your physical environment around you, like your outside world, like the sun and the temperature it creates, and loud noises or bright lights like sunlight. Or it can even be, like the temperature, like if it's too cold, it can even bring on pain. So that's the physical. But another component that we may have dismissed before, at least in like a lot of what pain experts thought and what we taught for pain management and treatment, is the mental aspect, the psychology, and the emotional and the cognitive. Because now we know what we think, how we feel, down to even our current emotional states and what our beliefs and our expectations are, what our goals are, what our motivations. These can all also affect pain in conjunction with the physical triggers too. As someone who has lost a loved one, or maybe if you even lost a loved one, did it hurt? it's mentally triggered, right? Like emotional pain, but it can hurt just as much, if not even more than physical pain. And that can also cause like a feed forward cycle, like the emotional causes the physical, which can kind of like affect each other and make it both worse and worse. So when you're figuring out what your potential pain triggers are, not just for low back pain, but just like pain in general, don't forget about the physical aspects. Other aspects include like, were you sleep deprived? Did you just get into like an argument with your partner? Were you angry, maybe even depressed? Were you anxious? Or have you been stressed lately? Or did something cause you recent stress or maybe even more chronic stress? All of these can be triggers for pain, believe it or not. To counter the mental pain triggers, then you would just put your mind and yourself in a better place and a better space for yourself. You can meditate, do yoga, talk to a friend, or maybe even distract yourself, like listening to music. You could talk to a mental health professional or do something physical for your mental health, like exercise or eating better or taking yourself out to a physical environment, like, I don't know, the beach or something that you may like. You can eat your favorite snack that makes you happy. And we often think all or nothing, like binary or this or that, right? That could be a trigger. So a trigger can be also, I want you to think about a combination of multiple sub triggers, if you want to say. So you could have a threshold for pain. Let's say your threshold for pain is 3. So 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3, right? And having that 3 will cause you ultimately to feel pain. Your first trigger could be something like poor diet, right? And it could be chronic poor diet. Your second trigger could be sitting for too long, like chronically sitting for too long. I don't know, like watching a lot of Netflix shows or something. And then ultimately your third one could be stress. So you could be having the chronic poor diet, chronic sitting, but if that's only a threshold of like 2, then you may not actually feel the pain. But all of a sudden, let's say you got really stressed or something, you just had an exam or you had a life event, bam, that's when you start feeling the pain. So the point is to get you just think about not just triggers in isolation, like all or nothing, like just this one trigger, but possibly having a combination of triggers. And this can be very empowering because this can be just life changing. Because if you work on multiple triggers that can help you with small aspects of pain, it can make your overall life happier because you're improving things like your diet, you may be exercising more, you may be taking care better of your mental health, or your physical health, you may be in a better shape. Like for me, myself, in an example, I have really gotten better in terms of like more physical activity, which is why I was gardening in the first place. I've been eating better and losing a lot of weight, managing my sleep better. So I attribute this to helping a lot with my chronic low back pain. If I didn't do a lot of these other things, I think they could have been, more triggers for me. I think number one, my biggest trigger right now will probably be stress. So I'm trying to really manage that stress and cope with that so that I don't trigger pain, because when I do have a lot of stress piling on, I can just sort of feel like more pain in my like low back. So the point of this video is really to help you, to give you tools to gain insight into your pain, right? So what people have found to be very helpful is like a pain diary, or it doesn't have to be like an actual diary. It could just be like on your phone or something. You write down when you started feeling pain, and you can start that off, and then you can write how much pain you felt and what activity you did. And then basically every time you have pain come on, you can just kind of reflect back on what happened. So, okay, like I did gardening the other day, and I did gardening for say 30 minutes, and I had like, I don't know, a 6 out of 10 pain. Then this will let you know. Also, you should be as descriptive as possible. So include more descriptive terms than just pain, like include things like burning, throbbing, sharp, dull, pins and needles, where it was, like exactly, even down to like, okay, my back, like where I have my tattoo, like where the letter I is, like, that can really give you a lot of information. So that the next time you do have pain, again, you can be like, okay, maybe I exercised or I did something or did this activity for like 30 minutes and it was too long. So what you can do the next time is cut that in half. Do the same activity for 15 minutes. And if you do not have pain, then that's awesome. You did 15 minutes of your favorite activity for that long. And then the key in how you would overcome the pain and not have it come on, like preventing a flare up, is to basically increase your threshold for activity without triggering your pain. You would probably not want to do 30 minutes after that 15 minutes because you'll probably have pain. It's too high of a jump. What you probably want to do is just increase it by like very small increments. So instead of 50, I would say even 20 minutes is too long. Like from 15, maybe just do 17 minutes. And then like after that, 20 minutes. If you had no pain in those subsequent activity like time frames, then that's great. Gradually bump it up. And before you know it, you'll reach half an hour, 1 hour, and then your final goal of however long it may be or how far it may be, like a marathon or something. So time could be a good metric. Another good metric may be like we've seen in the study, how far someone bended. So you can increase your, flexibility. Like I'll be able to reach my toes. That could be your like final goal or something without pain. Weight, how much you can lift, right? So like at the gym, if your goal is to lift, I don't know, like 100 pounds and you're at like 50 without pain, you wouldn't jump to like 100. I wouldn't even do 75. I would do like 55, right? That way, if you fail, you're not going to be super down on yourself because like, oh my God, like I'm like, can't even do this big goal. It's just very small increments, basically where you're just setting yourself for success and not failure in the first place. So you want to start somewhere. And the last point I want to make, inactivity is also a potential trigger. So if you're like laying there in bed, like how many of you guys like woke up in bed having like back pain, and this is assuming that your mattress isn't like really bad and needs to be replaced. That's probably because too much inactivity, or like why animals need to like move around and or like stretch, right? Or if you sat too long at a movie, your butt gets really sore and you want to like move around, right? Inactivity can also be a potential trigger. So this is also very cool because that means the opposite is probably the solution, right? To go out and do something, stretch, go on a walk, go on a run, hop on the treadmill or bike, or can even be an e-bike or an e-skate, like just do something and whatever makes you happy. Or it doesn't even have to be like exercisey. It can be just be a favorite activity. Go and like water your plants, go out and take out the trash or get the mail. And it can be your goal. Like if your final goal is to get the mail and come back without a certain amount of pain, then cut that in half first and see if you can do that. I'm going to walk to the front door without pain. Can you do that? Yeah, awesome. You're that much closer, right? Hope this really helps. Pain triggers, and hopefully this means increasing your level of activity somewhat, no matter what it may be, or no matter what your pain may be.